Good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People's Show on IntellectualRadio.com. And we are also streaming live at Facebook and on YouTube. You are tuning in to this week's edition with Mark Wallace and Charles Thomas.
That's me.
Our telephone number here is 708-223-8953, 708-223-8953. We would love for you to call in and join the conversation as we will be talking about the issues of importance to us here locally as well as on a national level and maybe some international conversation right here for the next couple of hours. Welcome to the program. Hey,
you know, it's big news over the last 24 hours. New police superintendent in the city of Chicago.
Yeah, we got a new one. But before we do that, I really want to something about the people who are suffering out there in Hawaii. Man, that's
Hawaii.
That's a bad situation out there.
Well, that's a bad situation, but I mean, I gotta think. You know, what about
our prayers?
If you want to talk about it first, go ahead.
No, just
I think the police superintendent's a bigger story locally. We've been talking about it all summer. It happened, and as far as I'm concerned, if I'm designing a newspaper, my headline will be Larry Snelling has been named the new police superintendent in Chicago. But go ahead, man. I mean, this sounds like a editorial meeting in the newsroom before we.
Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah. Okay. Do you think the Hawaii story is the lead? I think the police superintendent story is the lead.
All right, we'll split it. How about that?
Well, yeah. I mean,
you announced it.
Well, yeah, because I thought it was a natural lead. I mean, I thought that was the lead.
It's the big. It's a big deal.
It's going to have a lot to do with people's lives here in the city of Chicago, and for that matter, the entire region, because we want to know, we want to size up what this guy is going to do, how it's going to be different under Larry Snelling as opposed to David Brown or any of those predecessors. But I mean, I agree with you. I mean, Hawaii is a horrible, horrible situation. I mean, nearly 100 people.
Well, 100 people, 96 people. It was the last report that I got that they confirmed.
Right.
That they confirmed fatalities, but there are nearly 1,000 people unaccounted for. Not necessarily that they are have demised, right, but because they can't communicate. Their communication is totally shut down there.
Right. And you think of Maui as being this idyllic paradise, tropical paradise. I mean, and to think of it being consumed by wildfire is unthinkable. I just didn't think that Hawaii, given its lush appearance, the fact that it's surrounded by water, all of those islands, you don't think of a wildfire being a reason that it would be it could be destroyed. I can't imagine what it looks like now. You've been there?
I've never been there.
Yeah, I have.
I've never been there, but the scenes and the photos and the news stories that I was watching, some extended coverage this morning because Oprah Winfrey has a house there, and she went there to be of help. But you know, it was just devastating. And they said that this thing was traveling at 60 miles an hour, literally chasing people into the water.
Yeah, and I saw this one piece of video where there were people standing in the street, and you could see the fire in the fire background. And if it's traveling at 60 miles an hour, that fire could have been on those people within a matter of seconds. They had no idea because, again, Maui is a tropical, lush, tropical paradise, really.
Yeah.
And you just don't think of a wildfire. I mean, there are a lot of folks looking at what's going on in the world. I mean, what's happening in Hawaii, what happened in Turkey a few months ago, earlier this year, with 40,000 people being killed in an earthquake. Some of the heat wave in the United States this year.
Yeah, NASA recording saying that this has been the hottest July since the 1800s.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really read in enough on Hawaii to to know or to even hear theories of why
or how this
happened.
I was very curious, and I haven't read into it either, but I'm just wondering, how this could happen. And supposedly they have one of the most sophisticated alarm systems but it was really designed to alert them for an oncoming tsunami.
Yeah.
But this was a system that was supposed to alert them, that none of them went off. And I am guessing that was because the fire was moving so rapidly that it burned all of the communications down before those things could even alert the community. It's devastating as to what happened to them out there.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult to recover as well because, as you know, Hawaii is surrounded by water. It's an island, and most everything on the island, food, as well as building materials, were brought there from other places. So to restore it and rebuild it, they're going to have to to rescue people, they're going to have to bring in everything from elsewhere, which is going to complicate the situation. But we will pray for them here, certainly.
Yeah.
But to Larry Snelling, what do you know about Larry Snelling?
Well, in the conversations that I've had with some of the police associates that I have, no real negatives about him, and but there's also no real 4-star ravings about him. But I didn't get any negatives. I didn't get any negative feedback, and I talked to several current and former police officers who are familiar with him. And
what did they say?
But they just said that he was the best of the three, of the three finalists. But they also said that the other Chicago police officers, the Hispanic police officer, they said that he was not a bad guy either.
Yeah.
So,
well, what I've read, and I'll confess, I'm just really reading in on Larry Snelling now, is that he is a very likable guy within the ranks, particularly among the younger police officers, the new breed, so to speak, the ones in their 20s, perhaps into their 30s. They like him.
Yeah.
And I think that if he, and they hope that he will boost the morale of the general police department. And that's a good thing, because perhaps if their morale is lifted, then they will be more energized about doing their job. And that's got to be a good thing for anyone who's ever been in a leadership position in anything. You want energized, interested, focused employees. But the average person on the street, all they really care about is when you dial 911, how quickly the cop gets there, and whether or not they see police officers on patrol in their neighborhood. This is what homeowners, taxpayers, and business people, also taxpayers, that's what they care about most. Do you see cops? And how long does it take them to get there after you call them? Now, one of the big questions one of the issues that I saw in a lot of reporting had to do with this consent decree, which is to guarantee constitutional policing in Chicago, a reform movement. I kept reading the reporters talking about constitutional policing and such, and how this is an issue that has to be resolved in the city. And I kept thinking, as a taxpayer, homeowner, I don't know if that's what I really I care about it. Don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody's constitutional rights violated. But the number one thing to me is how long it takes them to get there if I dial 911. And are they out there serving and protecting? Do I see them on patrol? I care about those things. And I haven't read how Larry Snelling is going to deal with those elements of the whole police piece. And I think that's what homeowners and business owners in the city care about most.
Well, I think that, speaking as a homeowner, you're a homeowner. I'm a business person and, an advocate in the community. I want to see more police presence in the community. I think that the deployment of the resources that we have now have not been as efficient as they could have been. Even what we have, even though they're talking about we are down in numbers and that sort of thing. But I think that the deployment, and there are other officers who have the same thought, that the deployment of the resources are not good, because there are times that you could be on main thoroughfares and not see a police officer for long stretches periods of time.
Hours.
I recently had an experience where I was a witness in a drunken driving car accident that disabled the other vehicle, that we never got a police response in more than 2 hours. Never got one police to respond to the scene. That's just not good, and it's not acceptable.
But they'll tell you what they say is, now I'm not an expert, obviously, but they'll say that they don't have the officers, that all of the officers had been dispatched. And that's why you didn't get one, because they were working other jobs and they just hadn't gotten around to you yet. And we're talking about hours. We're talking about hours because their manpower is down. They'll tell you that their manpower is down. They're down 1,500, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000.
Whatever the number is.
Officers. Yeah, whatever the number is. They're down now. So they can't get there because they don't have enough people. And that the city, I mean, you take somebody like the FOP president, he'll say the police need to hire more people. Whereas Mayor Johnson has said, I'll hire 200 more detectives, but he didn't say he hasn't said he wants to hire or replace all of those 1,500 vacancies. So there's a controversy there.
There certainly is a discrepancy. There's a discrepancy there. And as I said before, I think that there needs to be an overhaul, forensic analysis of how the resources that we currently have are being used to maximize the trust of the public. Now, being that in the 2 hours, I think we called a collective 8 times to the police about that one scene from 3 different people. And they never once said, we don't have enough people. What they kept telling us, someone is on the way.
Yeah.
We'll have somebody there shortly. Right. Then that was at 9:30. By 11 o'clock, it was time for the shift change. And they said, well, we're on shift change now. And as soon as we get the shift change, somebody will be there within the next 5 minutes. That never happened. That never happened. So I'm hoping, and speaking back to the question that some people are talking about, this whole consent decree and constitutional reform. Well, Larry Snelling, right, was he came from the counterterrorism, right? But the other candidate, was the chief of constitutional policy and reform. So
the Latino guy.
So he can be right there to help him administer that part. But I think that they can do both. I think that they certainly need to look at the deployment of the police. Now, when we got to the police station, the sergeant in the police station, now there were several other police officers in there. There was a person taking reports at the desk. There was another woman who was sitting training somebody on the computer. And there were several police officers just kind of roaming around, laughing and joking. The sergeant, nobody within the station could take our report. So they had to call in someone off the street to do what is called a 501 to take the report.
There has to be a sworn officer.
So my thought was, if you had to call somebody to come into the station, why couldn't they show up to the scene?
Well, you know, I remember when Rahm Emanuel said during his term, which of course 5-6 years ago, he said, I think it was 6-7 years ago maybe, that Chicago police had gone fetal, that they basically are not proactive about anything. And if they hear, and maybe this is even at the dispatch level as well as being in the radio cars, that in your situation, nobody was dead. Nobody needed to go. If somebody needed to go to the hospital and the fire department was there, let them go. They'll go. They'll get there. But as far as us being there, cops have gone fetal. They're just not proactive anymore in the city of Chicago. Now that's the mayor.
Would that mean the same thing as being motivated?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, motivated. And maybe this guy Snelling can restore some energy, can re-energize.
I'm really hoping
the department.
so.
I do too.
I really listen. I root for our police department, and that it can be cohesive, and that we could have great relations between the community and the police department. I'm really hoping. Now he's got to be confirmed by the city council, which more than likely he'll be confirmed. I guess they'll either have a special city council meeting, or he'll be confirmed in the next.
He'll be confirmed in the next. I think there has to be a hearing. I think
like
that's
21 days or something like that.
Yeah, it has to be some kind of hearing,
right?
With the council, and then they'll take the recommendation, and then they'll
vote on
formalize it and vote on it.
Right.
But I think there's the other piece, is that the mayor on a couple of occasions already this year, I think once when he was in April when he was waiting to be inaugurated, and then during the past week when he had a press conference after this situation where the teenagers ransacked the 7-Eleven, and he was somewhat, is the word apologetic, or he was advising or admonishing the public not to characterize the teenagers as being in a mob, and to basically take it easy on them. This is the second time he's done that. He did it earlier in April when they had the situation in the Loop. He did it again, really made national news just a couple of weeks ago, or within the past couple of weeks, after the situation on Canal, in which he seemed somewhat apologetic for the young people. And again, going back to the theme, don't demonize these young people, these teenagers, or whoever they were, because some were 18 years old, some were carrying weapons, not to demonize them, and not to characters, I guess, stereotype every teenager in the city. And that philosophy that he expressed on those two occasions, how much of that is going to be part of Larry Snelling's approach to bringing the city back under control?
Well, based on what I heard from community groups and people who have worked with Larry Snelling, he comes out of Inglewood, and one of the presidents of one of the community associations, they said that Larry Snelling is the kind of guy who was easy to work with people from the community, in the community, that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that he is able to use his new role and leadership to corral that kind of cooperation, and hopefully boost morale and to build the kinds of relations that could quail some of those things that are going on. Now, is he going to be some sort of panacea with a magic wand? Of course not. And I think it's unrealistic for anybody to suggest that. But I certainly think that the first and most important thing is to get the motivation from the rank and file to look forward to coming to work, to doing their job, to responding to the needs of the public. Now, if you go to the suburbs, any suburb, and if there is a fender bender, they are racing to get to that scene. They're interested in doing their job. They're racing to get to that scene. And I think that they're hopefully that he can boost the excitement of being a police officer within the rank and file. I'm rooting for him to have that kind of leadership. So
the clock is ticking, Mark. The clock is ticking.
No, the clock is always ticking.
But the clock is really ticking. The clock is ticking now because a lot of the street crime is now spread into the north side, West Loop, South Loop, where these gentrification has occurred. A lot of the young criminals, because they're criminals, they're getting in cars and they're driving into these neighborhoods and they're starting to commit the crimes there. They're doing the crime, for instance, at Canal in Roosevelt to that 7-Eleven. That wasn't a residential area. The Loop, the kids came to the Loop, and I sense there being people are losing patience. They're losing patience. They want this stopped. I mean, I can tell you. I'm reading headlines right now from this CWB Chicago, and there are at least 20 victims targeted in 2 waves of armed robberies on Sunday. That's yesterday. 20 victims targeted on the street. They're just walking down the street, and a carload of young men, black men, young black men, hoodies, masks on, get out of the car, put a gun in their face, take the phones and wallets, get back in the car and roll away. A few people have not even been, have been injured, have been shot in these kinds of situations. But this is what people are experiencing in these neighborhoods, and they want it stopped. And they want the cops to be proactive in stopping it. My great fear is that a lot of young black men who have nothing at all to do with this might be driving in Lincoln Park, coming home from a DePaul from a basketball game. There might be students, young black men, and they'll be in a car coming home back to the campus or whatever. They'll be in Lincoln Park, and the cops will see them and they'll pull them over and they'll start. You know what I mean? What's going to happen? And if we don't get it under control, then a lot of innocent black men, boys, teenagers are going to get caught up. And that's my great fear, because there's going to have to be a reaction. And I can feel the backlash building. That people they want this kind of thing stopped. Where they'll do 12 robberies in a matter of 2 or 3 hours in a stolen car.
Well, I think one of the ways to prevent that is that there is more of a presence.
Police presence.
There has.
We're going to have to hire more cops.
Visibility. Well, they have to do what we've been talking about this for years, and they have no plan, and there should be what I would call a comprehensive plan that is regardless of the personality or the position that one person may or may not be in. The police department is made up of, and even the top part of the police department is made up of more than just one person. The hiring of police officers should not stop and start just because you don't have a police superintendent or you're getting a new police superintendent. There needs to be an infrastructure in place that process continues regardless of who the top person is or is not. So that just needs to be dealt with. The other thing is that, again, the deployment of the current resources that we have now is lacking.
You
It's
think we have
poorly.
enough police officers now to deal with what's going on in the city?
I think we have enough police officers now to improve what we have. I'm not saying that we have enough. I'm not in a position to say that we
I'm not
have
either,
enough.
to be honest
But
with
I'm
you.
saying that I've been to enough of the police districts and have conversations with people who are on the inside and people who do this job to point out some areas of concern. And then when I go and take a peek at them, their concerns are legitimate. They certainly should be considered. For instance, that you have a CAPS office in every district that is manned by 4 or 5 uniformed police officers. That could be manned, because all they're doing is taking information. That could be manned by a civilian. You could have civilians in those positions and have those officers out on the streets.
You know, I've heard that talked about for decades, really, in Chicago, about getting more police on the street by getting people out of offices and into patrol cars and on the street. I've heard that for a long time, and maybe it's just lip service and they're not doing it, but maybe they've already done it, and maybe they need more people on the street. But I'm saying, but even the people on the street, at some point, they're going to, if this continues, are going to become more proactive. They're going to go back to stop and frisk. They're going to do it, because and that's going to fly in the face of this whole constitutional business, which I said at the beginning of this conversation. People don't care about that. They don't care about that. I mean, they care about it, but it's not on your mind. Look, people, when I'm walking down the street, quite frankly, I ain't thinking about Laquan McDonald. I'm not thinking about George Floyd. I'm not. That's not my concern with public safety. I don't want one of these cars rolling up with 2 or 3, 4, 5 guys in it, popping out with their masks on, young black teenage boys with pistols, putting them in my face, taking my phone and my wallet, and putting my life in danger. And I'm even more concerned about my wife and my daughter, my granddaughter. What are they going to do? Because they seem to be picking on people, or picking out people, targeting people who they believe they can take out. Now, some of these people are strapped, and they pull their guns out, and it's a gun battle on the street. Now, I know how you feel about guns and all that, but I mean, I'm saying that it is a bad situation. It's got to stop. This has got to stop. See, we got to deal with the root causes, like the mayor wants to do, but he's also got to deal with tonight. What's going to happen tonight? And we aren't doing, I don't see us doing that. I think the police department is fetal, as Ram says. They're laying back, waiting for the crime and showing up afterwards, after it's been committed.
Except for when a police officer is in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Except for when a police officer has turned his car.
I got you on that. I agree with you 100%. But let's face it, the police officers are not being attacked. In fact, I think the fact that there are so few police officers and patrols that we can see is actually encouraging a lot of these young hoodlums, thugs.
So, you just affirmed what I said earlier.
Demons, Mayor. Yes, these aren't good kids. I'm
not getting into it.
Well, I am. If you got a gun and you put it in somebody's face, you're not a good kid. You're not a good kid. Maybe we can rehabilitate you, but you're not. We got to get you off the street.
I think we're distracting from the conversation of what needs to be done.
Well, I'm talking about, I think that
the police department and the distribution of the resources that because you said it, you just said it, what about tonight? Well, what about tonight? Get those police officers out. I was told by a police officer who's no longer a police officer, retired, who worked very hard and he was very dedicated to his job. because I called him to get information, dedicated to his job, and was asking about this merit promotion thing that people tend to talk about, and he was disconcerted by that because he said, "Look, I worked hard. I was going out there making the arrests, getting some of the more serious alleged criminals off of the streets, putting in the overtime when I was called to do the overtime, and there was this big complaint about overtime." He said that he was instructed to slow down. He was instructed to slow down on chasing the criminals. So they took him back off. They just put him on his regular schedule, no overtime. He was working because he wanted to get a promotion. He took the exam, he took the tests, he passed the test, high marks, got passed over, which is where this merit promotion comes in, because everybody has to take the test, but you could get promoted based on merit,
being a good cop,
even though you don't have the higher scores,
even because you're effective. You're effective as a police officer.
They say that you're perfected or effective, because it's more political than it is anything else. It's taking care of their own. So there's that sort of thing. So morale has to do with some other components as well, is that if you have somebody who is working hard and they are doing all that they're supposed to do and more, and they're getting passed over, you don't think that that's going to impact their morale?
They have a situation now where they're actually having trouble recruiting young people to become police officers. I mean, they have to aggressively recruit to find people to take that job. People don't want to be a cop anymore,
because police officers are looked at in such a negative way.
Where?
In some communities.
Well, in some communities,
they are looked at
exactly
in a negative way. Now, look, everybody wants for the police to be available when they need them. But what I'm saying is that there is this, you have this thing where you have the bad apple. So the police department, so as not to stain all of the other people who get up and go to work to do a good job, risking their lives and wanting to be public servants. When you have a police officer that goes bad, you have to deal with that police officer and not cover them. That is where the problem of confidence between the public and the police department becomes compromised, because the public sees, hey, this is a bad cop, and you all are covering for this cop.
I think
we deal with that cop and
that's not
hold them accountable.
That's not a citywide feeling. I mean, you can go from one neighborhood to another neighborhood and find entirely different relationships with the police department, and I think that it's just real.
Well, it's not just
real.
neighborhood.
It's just not a,
because every neighborhood police have good relationships with people in the community.
Absolutely.
I mean, every neighborhood.
In every neighborhood.
But I am simply talking about this perception.
Yeah, there is a perception. There's a perception, I think, in certain neighborhoods that the police are bad, or occupiers, or whatever. There's that perception,
or certain factions,
certain neighborhoods. And I think that what is happening is that a lot of people are manipulating those relationships. They'll take something like the Laquan McDonald situation and manipulate it, absolutely, and basically use it to their own end, and drive this wedge between the community and the cops, because they'll see every cop as being Jason Van Dyke, who clearly was a murderer who belongs in jail today, and he's walking around. And that's an easily manipulated situation, whereas the majority of the cops are not that way. But that's lost in the translation because a lot of politicians, a lot of activists have used that incident to drive the wedge between the people, because the community cannot survive without a security force there.
But I don't think it's the majority of the community. I don't think it's the majority of the community. I think that even the people like Will Calloway, who was one of the forefront people on this whole Jason Van Dyke thing, has tremendous relationships with the police department.
Hold on, we got a phone caller here. You want to take it now?
Yeah.
Hey, good evening. Good evening. You're on the People Show with Charles Thomas and Mark Wallace. Can you tell us your name and what do you want to talk about?
Good evening, guys. It's John.
Hey, John.
I wanted to help you. I actually did have some time to read up on Snelling a little bit. And I want to share some things because it's really interesting. You talked about it without realizing, Mark. So Snelling has spent 18 of his years at the police academy, made him the CPD's foremost authority on use of force, the use of firearms, and report writing. According to his resume, Snelling is certified to teach courses on active shooter scenarios, the use of tasers, firearms, and batons, as well as personal fitness. Aside from teaching police procedures, he's also a certified CrossFit instructor. He also, as you kind of talked about, Mark, his promotion to sergeant and to lieutenant were meritorious promotions. And I know they've been talking about him being promoted from chief of counterterrorism. But you got to understand, he's only been there 3 months. He didn't really get promoted to that. He got shifted over to cover it when Cato left because Lightfoot didn't give him the temporary job, and he walked out. And that's how Snelling got moved over to counterterrorism. I don't think he knows how to spell counterterrorism yet. He really has only been there 3 months. And so what we got is a guy who's been an instructor the majority of his time. He understands the constitutional issues because he's dealt with them. He gets to write the reports on those. And he hasn't been managing people. He's done that a few times, but for the most part, he's been a CrossFit instructor at the police academy.
A CrossFit instructor at the police academy. That's not. I don't feel safer because of that. I mean,
well, I think it was a little more than a CrossFit instructor. But let me just say this about CrossFit, instructing or physical instruction. If you look at some of the condition of some of the police officers today, they needed to go back into having some sort of physical conditioning. So
yeah, that's not a bad thing. I think we got another Eddie Johnson. I think that really is what we got here. We got somebody that's been promoted along meritoriously, as you talked about, Mark. And as you said, nobody knows anything bad, but they don't really know anything good either. And now we see, I think he will follow the mayor's lead, and when the lead tells him to do something, he'll do it. The question is, will the people then to work for him do it? I think one of the things that scares me the most is the FOP love him.
They love him?
Yep, that Kevin Harris has already come out and said, good guy, we like him, good choice.
That's frightening, because then that could mean that maybe they feel they can manipulate him.
Well, look.
They feel they know him. Just like Eddie Johnson. They feel they know him, and what they know about him, we don't know.
Well, we will see. We will see. Now, listen, and the conversations that I've had with police officers who have been trying to get promoted and have gone through that and never got the promotion, was that this is all about taking care of their own. And this is, but there was a process, right? There was a different process in coming to these three candidates, as opposed to them just being handpicked.
Right.
There was a process. So let's see how that turns out. I know that all of us.
Is this the first time the process has been used? Really?
Yeah, this is the very first time that. Well,
Rahm had
in the way that this process was. Now, I know that Rahm put that other so-called process in place, but that was really a process because Rahm, that was just a placebo of a process because he did his own thing in choosing Eddie Johnson. The way that we got Eddie Johnson. But hold on a second, Don. Hold on a second. The way that we got Eddie Johnson was supposedly the mayor had this commission of aldermen and that sort of thing, and they're looking for candidates, and they brought in candidates. But 2 weeks before he was supposed to consider whoever they were, Eddie Johnson started making all of the circuits on the morning news for like the next 2 weeks. He was out there, and I was asking, who is this guy? At that time, he was the chief of patrolmen. Mm-hmm. Never even heard of him. And all of a sudden, we know he becomes the mayor's choice.
Well, I get, it's one of those we'll see things. There are some challenges, and there are some things that are going to have to happen, as I say, in the city over the next year, 18 months, to quell what's going on, and we'll see what the real police work is going to be about. Is he going to be able to bring in new recruits? Maybe his experience at the police training academy or whatever they call it. Maybe that will be a good thing. Maybe he'll know how. He'll have a better idea how to bring young people into the police department or new police officers, because right now they're hurting, and they have 1,500, I think, between 1,500 and 2,000 vacant positions. Now, another thing that I think we have to keep our eye on here is, with those 1,500 to 2,000 vacant positions, they fund those positions.
Yes.
And we get nothing for it because they're ghosts.
Yeah.
But they're funded.
They have to be in the budget.
So, yeah, they have to be in the budget. So maybe this is a way, because we talk about defunding the police, or what's a better way of saying it?
I call it restructuring.
Restructuring or redirecting monies for law enforcement.
Demilitarize.
Whatever. I mean, a lot of people on the left want to see that happen. And perhaps it should happen in many jurisdictions around the country where we need to work on root causes.
Well, first of all, defund. I have always contended that defunding should never have been used.
Shouldn't. Okay, I don't want to have that conversation now, but I think we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about monies that are allocated for law enforcement, for public safety, can be used in different areas if they're used effectively. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe this is a way that Brandon Johnson can find money. Find part of his $800 million that he wants to use to address root causes. Perhaps this is a way he's going to do it, because it doesn't appear as though he's going to get money from any other source. He's just not going to find it. And maybe this is where a pile of money is, and he'll go for it.
Well, I contend that there's a pile of money out there. We're just talking about it that way. We just have to have a better use of the money that's already out there, because, for instance, 1,500, let's use the number 1,500 slots. Those 1,500 have to be funded every year. Right. They have to be funded into the budget for the salary, for the insurance, and whatever else. They have to be funded.
Benefits, everything.
Into the budget, but yet there's no positions that are filled. So those dollars are appropriated and have to be spent. So until you are filling those positions, then there needs to be a reallocation of those funds.
Well, that might be a place where he's going to get money. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can I help here a little bit? Because I think you almost got it, Mark, but you're missing it. What happens is then every year they overrun their overtime budget significantly and do spend all of that money. Now, there are some things that really need to be going on right now. There's a lot of federal money sitting in Chicago right now that Lightfoot did not spend because, as we laugh, she didn't know how to misappropriate. That's what we really need to be focusing on and doing here. But the thing with the police, like, you got a red herring there with that funding the position. They spend the money on anything and everything they want to spend it on. We need to be a point where, as you call it, reallocating, but really it's not reallocating the resources, it's reallocating what the hell the job is and letting them make sure that they know. As I told you guys last week, it's really crazy. There is no central entity in the Chicago Police Department during all hours of the day and night who's actually running these individual precincts and stations. They literally throw it out on the radio. Will you go handle this? And let the lowest functional person, the police officer, decide if he's got time to do it. And that's really, why things are not moving around it. But it's really interesting, Mark. It's kind of crazy that you went to the police station, tried to file a report, and you couldn't file a report because there was no sworn officer there. Exactly what you're saying you want. That was the reason.
There was a sworn officer there, but there was no sworn officer, according to them, that could write that report.
See, that's silly.
It is silly. It is silly.
No, Mark. What it was there had to be someone sworn to actually do it. What you have sitting in those police stations these days are guys who have been pulled off, men and women, who've been pulled off the street and no longer have a gun. They can't do anything.
No, John. I wish you had been at the police station with me. That was not that case. That was not the case. There was a young police officer who was taking reports for a stolen car. There was a guy who was processing I bonds, and there was a woman who was training another police officer how to do some reports on the computer. I'm just telling you, I'm painting the picture for you. So there were people there, but I think it's absolutely crazy that the sergeant had to come around and they had to have a caucus to find out who they could call in to come in and write a crash report, but they couldn't send that same person to the scene.
The inmates are running the asylum, Mark.
I don't disagree with you because it's completely out of it's disorganized.
Can Larry Snelling fix it? Is he the administrator who can fix it?
We don't know.
That's the question.
We don't know.
And
what we know is something's got to be done or it gets worse. And, we're seeing what's happening here. God, I hope this doesn't take long. I hope Brandon can put in place, what he wants to put in place, because if we get week after week of what happened with Arwani here, God, that's horrible.
well, Arwadi had it coming. I mean,
Well,
she had.
you're gonna
Well, because
you're gonna have
she had basically, PO'd the CTU during negotiations during Lori's 2021, 2021, and there was bad blood, and I think she had it coming once Brandon was elected. That was it for Arwadi, despite her incredible resume and such. Hey, if the powers that be and the powers that be in the at City Hall are with the CTU right now, and Arwadi had to know she had to know that she wasn't long for this world.
Well, listen, Brandon had already said that he was going to replace her, so
Right.
that wasn't any surprise.
It wasn't
He said-
any surprise
yeah,
at all.
He said he was going to
because
replace her.
I think,
Even though there were people who were advocating for her to stay, he said he was going to replace her. So,
well, he's not going to find anybody with, I guess, at least with that credential
why
to replace her.
Why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
She's not the only person in the,
Well,
in the country with those
but
credentials.
she knows. I guess she knows the lay of the land. She want to do the job, and I mean, sure, she'll be fine. She'll get some corporate job somewhere doing whatever. But
I'm sure she already has it.
I don't think it was the what. I think it was the how. I think it was the fact that he said I'm going to give you heads for 3 months. And she knew the 3 months was coming up, but really, she did an interview with Ahern today, and she said, "I never met with Brandon, not once. I was called Friday by the chief of staff and said, we decided to let you go." And she said, "How long? Do we have a transition period?" And he said, "No, today. Don't go back to your office."
Whoa.
Hey, listen, that's the way it happens. That's the way they do it at a lot of places.
It's a new sheriff in town.
They do it that way at the banks.
The whole new sheriff in town.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta.
But I don't
I'm
find.
not sure that's how you treat the health of the city, though.
Of course not. Of course not. Yeah, but it's all politics, man. It's about politics. It's about people who know nothing about healthcare, who are making decisions for political reasons as opposed to public health reasons. That's just the way it is in our wonderful city.
Well, understand that she was the leader of the department. There are career people in that department still working very hard to make sure that public health is being administered and being attended to. So it's not like the public health department is not functioning.
Yeah, but the new powers that be that come into play, all their people are now can become the bureaucrats.
Well, that's the way it goes.
Can be the
when you're in power,
upper
that's the way it goes. When you're in
that's
power.
the way it goes. But I think
Expecting more than that? Aren't we expecting more?
Oh,
different than that?
no, this is just a new.
Okay for you guys to say, that's just the way it is.
It's a new Democrat cabal
No,
that has taken over at City Hall.
Okay.
There's a new power wing in the Democratic Party. It's not the green team anymore as it was during the Daley years. I mean, your Madigans, your Burks,
Thank God.
your Daleys and all those guys.
Thank God.
They're not the powers that be
Thank God
anymore.
they've been
Now
decapitated.
you've got in Rahm. I mean, he had his own, his group, his Michael Sachs and that outfit.
Well, I'm listen.
Okay.
I'm
Now
hoping
we've
that
got
we're
the
going to have.
CTU,
I'm hoping that we're
the
going to have a
Chicago
different
Teachers
culture
Union.
with this administration. But
We do.
listen, you can't sum it up as though it's going to be the same way it was because he didn't keep Arwadi.
No, but I'm saying he wouldn't have kept whomever. There's a lot of people. David Brown is gone. All the people are going to go, man. There's going to be there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new power group in town. It's now oriented toward.
With every administration,
let me finish,
you're going
Mark.
to have new.
It's now oriented toward public sector unions, not just CTU, but also SEIU, AFSCME. These are now the power brokers in Chicago. They are farther to the left than they have ever been. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying they're farther to the left than they've ever been. And we got to deal with it. I thought people understood what they were voting for when they voted.
Well,
and they got what they voted
well,
for.
let's.
And we also can't say that they've screwed anything up yet because you've got to give them more time than 3 months?
Exactly.
Yeah, you've got
Exactly.
to talk to me about February, March, when after his budget.
Come on.
Wait, guys. You know the first 100 years first 100 days is what decides your turn.
But we
The
don't
first
really
100
know yet,
days
Don,
is
what
and
everything
we're not
that's
talking about
been
the first
been
100
done.
days.
We don't know yet everything's not in place. I want to see the budget. I want to see what that budget looks like. How he's going to raise? How he's going to raise the money? First, we get the money.
Who he puts in these chairs, and if what you see is what we started to see, that I'm going to put union people in there, and they're going to be people that I trust, whether they know what they're doing or not, then we're going to have a really rough 4 years.
Well, I'm hoping
for different and hoping for better. All right. Yeah. So,
hey, Don, thanks for calling. Don, thanks for calling, man. I think there's some other people online there that want.
All right, Don, we got to move on. We got some other calls coming in. Appreciate it always. Thank you so much. Yeah. But at any rate, so we shall see. But I think that this thing with the police department is really, really crucial. And the superintendent, I think, is really crucial. And I am hoping for the best for our police department for the superintendent. Absolutely. I'm hoping for the best. But if we don't have more disbursement and more physical presence in the community and on the streets, not in Dunkin' Donut, not in the back of the parking lot playing Apple Crash or whatever that game is, but more presence on the streets.
I agree. I mean,
that is what we call, in construction, we call, don't wait till the building is dilapidated. Do some preventative maintenance so that you don't have to go and, spend all the big money rebuilding the entire thing. We need to have police presence in the community. I want to see some more officer friendlies, everywhere. I want to be able to see a police officer wherever it is that I go, somewhere close by that I can see a police officer. I'm not saying I got to see one on every corner, but I need to see a police officer.
You got to feel their presence.
Yes.
Feel their presence. And I see that's what I don't think these robbery crews fear anymore. I don't think they fear a presence. I mean, they'll steal a car, break out the back window, take off the license plate, and drive around like they know they're not going to see any cops.
It's the same thing.
That's the problem.
It's the same thing that they did with red light cameras and speed cameras. That they decided not to have any traffic enforcement, and we have people who, hey, they know they're not going to get pulled over. They're not going to get pulled over, and some people who are just reckless drivers don't care anything about it. I mean, they don't even care about waiting at a stoplight anymore.
No. I noticed that for the last several years.
Okay. Yeah. That's because we don't have any enforcement.
That's right.
At all.
That's right. They don't care about a stoplight anymore. They'll pull up beside you, look at you, and just, if they don't see anything, they're gone. I noticed that a couple of years ago and told that, during the worst of the pandemic, when the pandemic began, that started. You see people on the expressway, these guys driving these particularly these Dodge Chargers.
Yes.
In and out of traffic,
yes.
Going, way over the speed limit. No state police, no Chicago police. They don't go near the Dan Ryan.
No.
It's madness. It's lawlessness.
I saw a state trooper today for the first time, and I don't know how long.
In the city? Yeah. You don't see them in the city.
Period.
They don't even go to the. I think both the Chicago police and the state troopers have basically abandoned the Dan Ryan.
Well, they've abandoned any type of traffic enforcement.
But you go to Indiana, you see them all the time. You go to Michigan, you see them all the time on the road. They're sitting in the median.
And guess what? They don't have any red light cameras and speed cameras in Indiana.
Well,
they still have police cars that says traffic patrolman on the police car.
Yeah. Well, then, Illinois is definitely wide open. Lawlessness is the name of the game.
Wow.
We'll use our computers to get you, and our speed cameras and red light cameras to get you, but we won't have live bodies out there.
Well, they say that we will allow for you to speed. Just send us the money. You can speed as much as you want. Yep. Drive. Just send us the money.
Yep.
Right. We don't really care about safety. They don't care about public safety.
That's the name of the game.
When it comes to that sort of thing. So we've got to demand better. We have to demand better from the department. So if you're going to just put a person there that is just going to oversee the same thing, we'll be having the same conversation 4 years from now.
Well, it's conceivable that is what has happened, unless there's some serious, change of attitude about the about police work in the city. So far from the mayor, I have not heard that. I'm sorry, I haven't heard it. What I've heard him say, I've heard him apologize for some just outrageous situations that have happened in the city since last spring.
I'm not going that far.
Well, I will. And he's apologized for him. He's been like, wait a minute, man. Take
you heard
charge.
him apologize?
I mean, he's saying that
I didn't hear him
don't criticize
apologize.
the kids. Don't call that a mob. That is a mob. That's a mob of kids that are out of control.
You're taking it out of context.
No, I'm not taking it out of context.
Yeah, I think so.
No. I saw it. Did you see that thing that happened in L.A. on Saturday? In L.A. Saturday, man,
No,
they
you know what
had like 50 teenagers or young black men run into a Nordstrom and just ransack the place. They've got the video. I saw it on TV.
No,
ransack the place.
I was watching.
But so it's just not Chicago where it's happening. It's like, wait a minute, where are they coming on with this? Our young people, where are they coming on with the idea that 50 of them can get together, can organize themselves online, and then target a store and go rob it and get $100,000, $200,000 worth of stuff, purses and shoes and jewelry, and run away with it? What are they talking? Where are they talking about this? How are they talking about this? I mean,
I didn't see that story over the weekend. I was spending a lot of time because a friend of mine's son, who I just couldn't believe it. I was excited, but man, I was like, where did the time go? I remember carrying this little boy in his baby with car seat into his mother's office.
Okay.
And on Saturday, I watched him in his procession at Morehouse College.
Wonderful.
Going into this little baby in 2005, I was carrying into the office. So
That's a
big
great
shout
thing,
out
man.
to
That's
Alex
a great thing.
Reeves, Karen Norrington Reeves' son,
Okay,
is
sure.
at Morehouse College. And I watched those 2,200 black males proceeding into the university.
Yeah, that's
what I paid a lot of
incredible
attention
scene.
to this
Yeah,
weekend.
that's good, man. Yeah, I saw that on the news.
Yeah.
The ransacking, and that is the absolute polar opposite. You saw that on the news. That's very good.
Yeah.
That shows that the
No,
news.
that was not on the news.
It wasn't on.
It was not on the news.
Oh, where'd you see it?
It was on social media.
Well,
It
that's
was
the
not on
news.
the. It was not on.
Oh, you're
it
talking about
never
the
made-
regular news.
It
Well, you
never
know-
made a single. It never made a single mainstream nor cable news.
But I saw.
But you saw.
No, I didn't see it
the-
on the
the-
news.
you-
I saw it on Facebook, or what do you call it, online, or YouTube or whatever. I
What?
didn't see it. I didn't see it on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, whatever they. No, I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because that's where I get a lot of
Mhm.
my news, because
Yeah.
I can, and that's obviously where you get a lot of yours too, because
I
you're
watch
able-
everything.
Yeah, no, but you
Yeah.
watch ABC, CBS, NBC.
I watch everything.
I don't watch that, man.
I watch
I've given up
everything.
on Fox, MSNBC, all of that stuff where they take a position, where they form a narrative and they want to support it. I try to stay away from that.
I
try to
have
stay
to
away
watch
from
it
all
all
that.
and
Yeah.
read as much as I can. So,
That MSNBC and Fox and CNN, man, that's just too much. You're not getting the truth. I have noticed though, and I'm not. This is not, and I told you so moment. But now I'm hearing CNN, the New York Times, and a lot of these other people are now beginning to admit that Russia is winning this war over there, that we're spending more tens of hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever it is to support, that now their so-called offensive that the Ukrainians have been involved in, it's failing. But we're continuing to spend all of this money over there. And the president just a couple of weeks ago said that Putin had lost the war, and he's lying.
He is losing the war.
He's lying so much. This guy Biden lies.
He is losing the war.
He's just a lie. He lied about this whole business with his son and his business people. They got pictures of him there. They say they've got him on speakerphone talking to the Hunter's, his son's business partners.
Not
what
true.
is that? That's not true.
No, it's not true.
Okay, what is the truth?
That's not.
What's
true.
the truth?
That's not what the reports.
But what's the truth?
If somebody reported that to you, then
do you know the truth?
From the testimony of the person that they wanted to go in to testify.
Well, he did testify that
he
was
testified
that Joe was on
that
speakerphone.
No, he said
when
that
he was discussing business with Hunter.
He said that there was never any conversation that he heard on speakerphone in any evidence of Joe Biden having any conversation about any business with Hunter Biden or the people that he was doing.
So you think Joe's
with.
telling the truth?
I'm telling you the
But
person
is Joe.
No, wait a minute.
Are you
the person?
confident Joe is?
I'm telling you what the testimony was of the person that the
interpreting
Republicans brought in. I'm not interpreting anything.
You are. You're interpreting
I'm
it.
not interpreting
That's what you heard.
I'm telling you what
I've
the testimony is.
I've heard differently. So what about the war thing? Do you think he's lying about that? He said Putin was losing?
No.
What did he say? Why did he say that?
I think that the international community, I think that the international community should continue to do what they're doing to support Ukraine so that Putin doesn't become this dictator that he wants to be.
Oh, really?
Around.
Hey, we got a call,
globe.
man. We got a call. Hey, good evening. You're speaking to Charles and Mark on the People Show on Intellectual Radio.
And I was just calling you guys to let you know that the grand jury in Fulton County jury is voting on whether or not to indict Donald Trump.
I'm hearing that.
They're voting.
Yeah, I'm hearing that it's almost inevitable. In fact, there was a flash frame or whatever that was put on the internet that actually showed a copy of what they call it, a true bill or whatever, that they had actually come up with some counts, felony counts or whatever, that on which they're going to indict him. So that would be number 4. Plus you had the Russia thing. You had 2 impeachments and now 4 indictments of Donald Trump. It
criminal
seems like
indictment.
they really
criminal indictment,
and
he ought to be indicted, and he will be convicted, and he should go on off to prison.
Really want to get Donald Trump in the worst way.
No, he's got himself.
Which makes me
he got himself.
Which makes me wonder. Wow, they want him that bad. Then I have to take a good look at that to see why they want him so badly.
I hope you do take a good look.
I will. I have to do that, man, because this will be number 4.
You guys know.
What's your name?
My name is Mildred.
Thank you very much, Mildred, for calling us with that update. We certainly appreciate
that very much. So I guess they can't do it though.
Well, Mildred, what is your what's your thought? Well, grand jury is something is different. The grand jury runs differently because they had 7 witnesses that they had to interview and that the grand jury heard from, and so that ran over. When they actually announce the indictment, they have to be in a formal session. I mean, they just can't mail it out at 10 o'clock at night. They have to do it. The foreman has to present it or whatever, and the prosecutor has to be there as well. Isn't that the grand jury process is different than that of a actual case. All the grand jury has to do is to say that there is probable cause that this person committed these criminal acts.
Right.
There was a sufficient evidence to say that it's probable. It's not a conviction.
Oh, absolutely
right
not.
Beyond it is just to say to the state attorney, you have 26 people there that are listening to these evidentiary witnesses, and after that they take a vote.
And I look at that, and I'm not a Donald Trump fan, so to speak. I mean, I think he did I think in retrospect, he did a fine job as president compared to what we have now. This guy putting us on the brink of nuclear war, and he's got interest rates at 7%, and we've gone through this inflation. I mean, the guy we have now, if he can make it,
Is doing a yeoman's
breathing
job.
until next
It's
year.
doing a
But
yeoman's job.
at any rate, I think what we really have to start considering is that the Republican candidate for president in 2024 is looking more and more like Ron DeSantis.
Oh, please.
Well, don't vote now, Mark. Don't vote. But I'm talking about it dispassionately.
Oh.
That if Donald Trump goes up in flames,
It will not be Ron DeSantis.
Oh, it will be Ron.
No,
it could
will
be
not.
Ron DeSantis.
It could be, but it's not going to be.
Who do you think it would be?
I don't know. It's not going to be Ron DeSantis.
Who do you think it could be?
I don't know. But
No,
I
I'm
do
looking
know
at Mark.
is
Mark,
it will
I want
not
you
be
to calm
Ron
down. I want you to
DeSantis.
calm down a minute. I want you to calm down.
This guy is falling apart every second.
Mark. I want you to calm down.
As I said he
I
would.
want you to calm down. Okay, and stop. Don't be political. Try to be a journalist for a moment. I know you're not, but try to understand. Try to handicap what's going on in the Republican side. He's got like 20% of the vote. The others are in the single digits. Donald Trump, if he can't run because he's if he's in jail, I don't know, whatever. The guy who is best positioned at this point to win the Republican nomination, I'm not talking about the presidency.
Mhm.
I'm saying that's
Okay.
why I think he continues to campaign, even though his campaign appears to be floundering right now. But if those Donald Trump voters cannot vote for Donald Trump because of whatever reason, they will split and go different ways. And I think enough of them will go to 20% Ron DeSantis, where DeSantis would suddenly become the front runner among the Republicans. That's all I've really said here. I don't want you to react emotionally. You don't want to vote for the guy. I get that. But I'm just trying to size up the 2024 race, that DeSantis is positioned. He can't beat Trump if Trump runs, if Trump can run. But if Trump has to get out because he's locked up, maybe, DeSantis will be your guy in 2024. That's all I'm saying, Mark. No, you cool with that?
That's your opinion.
No, it's not an opinion.
That's
It's,
your
it's
opinion.
sizing it up.
Yeah.
It's
I understand
it's
that.
handicapping it. And I'm saying the other guys don't seem to have the wherewithal to become the front runner if Trump goes down, because Trump right now appears to be running away with it. But I think DeSantis is hanging around because he sees the reality that Trump might go down. He might be in a Georgia prison. He might be in a federal lockup. He might be on parole. All kinds of things could happen to Trump because they're out to get Trump in the worst way, man. Woo.
And they ought to be. I think that in sizing up the Republican fiasco that's out there, that Ron DeSantis is going to continue to implode, because that's who he is. He's going to continue to implode. And I think that the next three people, I don't think that Mike Pence can get enough traction in the Republican base to get the nomination. Can Tim Scott or Nikki Haley make some sort of progress? But I think that Nikki Haley is doing herself a disservice herself. She's trying to be, a little Trumpian without being Trump, as opposed to just being herself. But I think that you could see Tim Scott make some sort of progression, because I think that Ron DeSantis is going to tank like he is tanking, and he's going to continue tanking, even if Donald Trump is out.
I think some of those people are running for vice president. I think that's why they're putting their names out there, because they're considering themselves possible candidates to be on the ticket as as Kamala was in 2020, she hung around for as long as the South Carolina primary, then dropped out, but then she resurfaced. But her name was out there because of what she did, and what she really didn't do much in Iowa or in New Hampshire. But by South Carolina, she backed off, but she came back. And I think a lot of these guys will basically are looking at the same kind of dynamic where they put their name out there now, they get involved in the debate, they really go nowhere. And then suddenly, whoever that nominee is, whether it's whomever, then that person has a
I think
has a
that
persona.
any one of them would accept the vice presidency
Exactly.
role. I think any one of them would.
But they want to put their name out there.
Yeah, sure. I think that any one of them would. But I think in terms of who out of that cast that is there now, I think that if I had to select somebody out of that group, I would say that Tim Scott, if he doesn't, go too far off, if he stays focused and stays, on a message, he could get somewhere.
You could.
He could possibly get somewhere, at least be competitive, right?
Gavin Newsom is basically doing the same thing that Ron DeSantis is. But Gavin Newsom isn't going to challenge a sitting president, not at all, in a primary. But he's keeping his name out there. He's hanging out in places like South Carolina and Florida and New Hampshire because he knows that Joe ain't all there, and that Joe could have all kinds of shit. Joe could slip and fall, man. I mean, Joe could do a lot of things could happen to Joe. And I think Gavin Newsom knows that. And that's why he's keeping his name out there. And he's doing the same thing DeSantis is doing. Essentially. I mean, Gavin Newsom, oh my gosh, he's a little oily for me. I couldn't handle that guy. Look at California.
Gavin Newsom is light years brighter than Ron DeSantis, so I wouldn't even.
Whatever.
I wouldn't even make.
That's an opinion.
I wouldn't even
I
make the
get that.
comparison.
And I respect your
between
opinion.
those two people.
To me, he's a little oily to me, and I don't. And I look at California, and I look at some of the things that are happening out there, and I'm saying, man, he had managed California very well. So why would I vote for him to take over nationally? I mean, and I think it would either come down to him or Kamala. I mean, they're not going to have.
You would vote for Ron DeSantis?
If
you would vote for Ron DeSantis
versus Gavin Newsom? Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If it came down to those two, oh man. I look at Florida, and then I look at California. Where's the growth state? Where's the state that's dying? Where are people leaving? Where are people going? Who has the most black businesses in the country?
They have the highest.
Let me finish,
number.
Mark, you interrupted me. The state that has the most black-owned businesses in the country?
Not because of Ron DeSantis, that's for
whatever.
sure.
But whatever.
Not because of
whatever.
Ron DeSantis.
I would still vote for that person as opposed to Ron. What is it? Gavin Newsom. He's a little oily for me, man. A little slick back. I don't.
What does that mean? What do you mean slick
back?
back?
Oily. He's a little greasy, man. A little oily. He's the guy that went to the $800 a night, $800 a plate dinner during the height of COVID with his buddies. They got pictures of him sitting there chowing down, no mask, eating his $800 plate dinner at this fancy, very expensive restaurant in Napa Valley. But after he told people they can't come outside,
big deal.
Come on, man.
Come on,
that's
big
big stuff to me. That makes a difference.
Yeah, okay.
That makes a difference.
Okay.
I think he's Nancy Pelosi's nephew or something like that.
I don't know what
they're very wealthy. They're very well. They're the elites, man. The elites, the rich folks. See, the rich people, man, that are going to save you from all this horrible stuff.
Ron
DeSantis,
who is floundering, and every time that he tries to adjust himself, so he goes and attacks a duly elected district attorney.
Who's that?
Ron DeSantis.
Who's the district attorney that he?
So this latest one was Monique Worrell, who is the district attorney down in Orlando, in Central Florida.
Democrat.
That he,
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Well,
it's a political thing.
but yeah, that's what
Yeah.
what he does,
Well,
right?
it's a political
And of course,
thing. I mean,
a
probably
federal
was back to
judge,
white
a federal
Democrat or anybody Democrat,
a federal
because they're
judge.
Democrats.
Well, yeah, I'm not.
I mean, you know,
I'm
I mean,
just simply saying,
yeah.
this is a guy who does not even care about the rule of law.
It makes sense.
This
to
is the
do
guy
it in
that you
Florida,
said
which
that
is
you
a
would vote
Republican
for.
state, man. You don't
Yeah.
want to go out there supporting a Republican, a Democrat in a Republican state, a state that's decidedly Republican after the debacle of 2018. The first time around, y'all ran that guy. Democrats ran that guy, Andrew Gillum, the one they found in the hotel, man, with
Andrew
the
Gillum. Yeah.
the dirty sheets.
I happen to know. I happen
You know
to
that guy?
his family.
You
yes.
know him?
Mhm.
What happened to him, man? What's he doing now?
He just got. I'm not sure what he's doing now.
Man,
I'm
that
not
was
sure
man.
what
I
he's
tell you,
doing now.
Florida missed a
Yeah.
bullet on that one. Because that guy was a straight up, you know, he had some problems, man. And we didn't know about it, man. I mean, I was rooting for the guy, man. I heard this brother's running for governor of Florida. They say he could win. Man, I mean, if I was living in Florida back in 2018, I would have voted for the guy. But then after the election, they found him in the hotel with a male prostitute, and the sheets and everything is all messed up. And oh man, look at what America missed a bullet. Man,
Yeah, well, I wish we would have missed.
I tell you.
I wish we would have missed and dodged the bullet with Donald Trump to see what he has done.
I tell you, man. I mean,
I wish we would have dodged that bullet.
Well, I tell you,
So,
man.
Yeah,
Donald Trump, Andrew Gillum, Ron DeSantis. We're talking about them all, man.
yeah.
Talking
Well,
about them all.
yeah. If
Yeah.
you if you're going to size somebody up based on you're going to be the moral police.
Moral police, man. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah.
If you're in a
if you're going to
with
line
a
them up,
bodybuilder, and they catch you and you on methamphetamine or whatever they were doing, come on, man. Come on, man. I ain't making a moral judgment. I don't want that person to be my governor. I'm sorry. I'm not going to vote for a guy.
you said you would.
who gets
You said
involved in all that.
you said you would vote for Donald Trump.
Why? I would if he ran against Joe Biden.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, man. Or
Charles.
this Gavin Newsom guy.
Charles,
Come on, man.
Charles, you
if
really
that were
you're
the
really
case,
showing
hey
your,
man, and
you're
you know
really
why I would
showing
do it? You know
you're
why I
really
do it?
showing your colors there.
You know what I
Charles.
do it? Because Trump said he'd stop that war in 24 hours.
Oh please.
That is the
So
most
you-
important
so
pressing issue.
you believe that,
facing
right?
Mankind.
So you believe that?
Yeah.
You believe
have
that?
to.
Oh my.
He's the only
goodness,
one that
Charles.
says he'd do that. Even
Okay.
DeSantis says he would continue
Oh.
to support the Ukrainians. I ain't ready to die on that
Yeah.
hill, man. You know, did you hear
Well,
about
you're not going down
you
that
hear
hill.
about the Africans, man? The
You're not
Africans
gonna
are
die
now
on that hill.
supporting Putin, man. What's up? In the motherland, they're supporting Putin.
Are they?
Yeah, they got 49 African countries. In fact, Putin, he forgave $23 billion in loans from Russia to the African countries, where the International Monetary Fund is still holding the African countries to pay their debt, which is basically bankrupting them. So in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, where they're throwing out the French right now, the Russians are supporting the revolutionaries.
Are they
You
really?
folks know about that, right?
Who's-
You know
who-
that the
who-
Russians are
who-
supporting
who
the
trusts that?
Africans, and the Africans are supporting the Russians. They just had a big meeting in Petersburg few weeks ago. They're supporting Putin
Yeah,
in this
I'd have to.
business in Ukraine.
I'd
The
have to-
Africans,
I'd
man, are
have
you
to-
gonna go
I'd
against
have
your
to-
brothers
I'd have to
and
look in-
sisters
I'd
in the
have to look in-
motherland?
Well,
Come
you
on
know,
now. Come on now.
Africans
They're having a big
Africans have
meeting in
been
South
misused
Africa.
before.
Look, man,
Africans have been
by the
misused
United
before.
States and the Europeans.
Yeah.
Now, on October 22nd, there's going to be a meeting in South Africa. There's going to be a BRICS meeting. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa leading the meeting. 49 other countries are going to be there. They want to get involved with this new alliance. And the
Mhm.
United States, with NATO, is opposing it. Now, I'm just telling you what's happening in Africa. I mean, that we can go down this Joe Biden road and support Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe, or we can see what our brothers and sisters are doing in the mother country. I'm talking to a black man now. We got a decision to make. What we want to do here. Who we support in this world stage?
Well, first of all, your statement of Ukraine being the most corrupt country in Ukraine.
You didn't know that? Didn't know that? Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. One of the most corrupt countries
I think
in the world.
That Zelensky certainly is trying to turn that around and doing
around. Zelensky?
Yeah.
Zelensky's lost 20% of his country. The Russians have already taken it over. They're going up to the Dnieper River. And they'll stop there.
Yeah.
And all those people that they have conquered have already voted to join Russia. Those people speak Russian. They do. Mark.
Listen.
You gotta. There's a couple of people on the internet I want you to start reading, and I'll say it, so maybe our audience can start checking it out. There's a guy named Colonel Douglas McGregor. He's a former Defense Department official. He does a lot on the.
Who?
His name is Colonel Douglas McGregor. He's a West Point graduate, former advisor in the Defense Department, who takes a different approach to this whole Ukraine situation. People should look him up and listen to him and listen to his spin on this war. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I think
it's different than Joe Biden.
I think I trust the way that the president and the international community is
the international community. Who are you talking about? Most of the people around the world do not support the United States and the NATO people. They're bullies. They don't support them. The rest of the world, the Indians and Chinese, make up 40% of the world population. And they're still trading with Russia. They're not supporting the United States and NATO in this nonsense.
Well,
they're putting the world at risk.
I disagree with you.
Man,
they are. They have some complex trade issues because of they need to make sure that their people are continuously fed. So it's not that they are doing it because they think that it's the right thing to do. It is a political decision that they're making.
Well, whatever, but they've made it, and they don't support the United States sending weapons to prolong this war. And they do not want that because they realize that all it takes is a slip up, and one side or the other will use a nuclear weapon, and the world is done.
Well,
they realize that.
I am.
The United States.
I'm not worried about that.
Mark, the United States
I'm not worried about that at all.
fighting people in sandals with machine guns mounted on the back of pickup trucks. That's who we fight. That's who we've been fighting for the last 30 years. These people have satellites and they bomb things. They invented satellites. The Russians did, right? They were the ones who put the first satellite in the air. Well, they have satellites that are watching everything on the ground, and they're killing these Ukrainians by the hundreds of thousands. The
New York Times,
come on, paper, man.
That's not my paper.
If Russia admitting that the Ukrainians are being slaughtered,
Charles,
man.
If Russia was winning this war, as you say that they are, if they're winning the war, it would have been over a long time ago. It is a fallacy for you to think that Russia is winning the war. It's an absolute fallacy.
All you have to do is look at any map of who controls what. And the Ukrainians, they've lost 20% of their country. The part that is closest to Russia, where people speak Russian. They voted in what they call plebiscites or whatever to join Russia. They did, including Crimea, that Zelensky says he's going to recapture. He ain't going to come close to that. If he does, let me tell you something. If the Russians lose this war, you're dead. Because they're going to use a nuclear weapon. They're going to use a nuclear weapon.
Please.
They have more nuclear weapons than we have.
Yeah, well,
they have submarines off the coast of the Atlantic Ocean and Pacific. You can't win a nuclear war. You can't lose one either. Because
I'm not the least bit worried about that.
Mark,
you're bloviating.
The guy's name is Colonel Douglas Abbott McGregor. He's a retired U.S. Army colonel, and former Defense Department official, West Point graduate, written all these books. Look him up on YouTube.
I don't think the United States is the United States listening.
Regor.
Is the United States looking to him for any type of advisement?
Not, because
of course
he's
not.
Saying
right.
he's saying to the Biden administration,
of course not.
You need
so I wouldn't be listening
back
or paying any attention
and
to him.
Negotiate with the Russians to stop the shooting. The killing must stop.
First of
and
all,
the only way it can stop
Joe
is for
Biden
the United States to stop
and the United States
weapons that we could use.
The United States wouldn't dare make that silly mistake.
To house homeless people.
The United States wouldn't dare make that silly mistake.
The United States wouldn't?
No.
We didn't make silly mistakes in
won't make that
Afghanistan,
mistake.
silly mistakes in Vietnam, silly mistakes in Iraq. They just out and out lied about that.
Well, you know,
weapons of mass
they
destruction.
absolutely
Remember
lied
that
about
one?
that one. Yeah.
Remember that one?
Absolutely lied.
They lied about
that.
it, okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, they lied.
You're a Republican president.
Whatever. I don't care. It wasn't my boy.
You're a Republican president.
Who was it that lied? He lied. They lied, man.
He lied about it. He lied about
party.
it. And they made sure
industrial complex.
They made sure
and they make Democrats heal and they make Republicans heal. The military industrial complex. I find it so amazing that people on the left are now supporting these people who want to sell all these weapons. The Ukrainians are dying.
Well, I
the
certainly don't
billionaires
support.
in the United States are making the
I don't
money.
support Putin going in to take somebody else's country.
Oh, really?
Because
and you want
he
to go
wants
over there and fight?
You
want to go over there?
I don't want to go over there and fight him.
Well, somebody's going to have to do it.
That's why.
The Ukrainians are all dead.
That's why.
Their army is
That's
gone.
why
it's been obliterated, been annihilated.
So is Russia. That's why Russia is pulling criminals.
Russia is making bombs. We run out of bombs, man.
No,
Even the president admitted that.
Come on.
He said they don't have any more shells. So now we got to give them cluster bombs.
Yeah.
They're shooting thousands and thousands of rounds every day, and we can't even make them fast enough because I support
sending and supporting them rather than sending our military over there to
pretty soon
fight.
You have to do something else because they're running out of soldiers.
If in fact
the graveyards are overflowing in Ukraine
if Putin
with
was
Ukrainians.
If Putin was to win and was to take over, he is going to keep going.
What?
He's going to try to keep going.
He's going to
try to keep going.
Poland. He's going to take all that
into Poland, right? Then the United States now has to send troops over.
Why?
So
because
you want
you
want them to send troops over.
No,
so
I don't want to send troops over. I want them to
keep
negotiate.
Supporting
Zelensky. They should make Ukraine a neutral country.
Putin doesn't want to negotiate. He doesn't want to negotiate. He doesn't want to negotiate.
With the African countries.
Oh, come on.
You missed this. He met with the African countries and he held up an agreement. That was an agreement that he would withdraw.
This says that he boasted himself by against sanctions by extracting and exporting gold from the Sudan.
Pardon? Who's that?
Putin.
I don't know what you're reading.
Okay.
I don't know what you're reading.
You said that the Africans.
I'm showing you stuff
that
here.
The Africans are all in support. I'm showing you what they're saying here.
Are supporting the Russians because the Russians just forgave $23 billion in debt to African countries. And they applauded. I think it's wonderful.
I'll have
they
to
are
go.
now supporting
I have to do a little research on it because I don't know.
I
don't know enough
about
I
can help you out,
debate
man.
it with you.
All you got to do is call me, man, and I can give
no. I know how to read and research.
Reading list and everything, man.
I can read and research.
Africans, hey, on the 22nd, there's going to be a meeting in South Africa.
I can do some. I can do some research.
Keep your eye on that meeting in South Africa on August 22nd. It is the BRICS conference. Look it up, folks, and read about it. It has a lot to do with the value of the dollar. These people are trying to come up with a new reserve currency for the world.
Oh, please.
That is not the dollar. Oh, please.
Okay. Yeah.
Mark, you got to pay attention, man.
I'm not the least bit concerned.
You got to get your money straight now.
I'm not the least bit concerned.
Keep your money tied up. Now, if they make something other than the dollar,
my money is doing just fine.
It could be
my money is doing just fine.
You could have that. You could have that money that's really not worth as much anymore.
Yeah,
the Saudi Arabians are now buying oil
You know,
Chinese money.
You know what my motto is? I don't worry, I worship.
I do too, man.
Okay.
I'm worshiping.
I don't worry.
Praying that the United States comes around and stops sending these weapons to Ukraine, where all these Slavic people are being slaughtered.
When Putin,
Russians and
when
Slavs
Putin
are
stops,
being Ukrainians are being slaughtered. They are Slavic people. They are the poor people of Europe, the Slavs. You know, as in Slav. That's slaves. They were the ones who worked in the agriculture in Europe back in the day. They were the slaves, the serfs. They call them the Slavs. They're the ones who are dying over there. They're dying, while the military-industrial complex that makes all the weapons, they're getting richer and richer and richer over that death.
Okay.
That's
all right.
what's happening, man.
All right.
I mean,
well,
work on that.
I'm trusting. I'm
gonna
the
send you some
decision
stuff,
of the president. Well, you're happy to send me whatever you want to send me. I'll be happy to take a gander at it. But I will certainly do the research. But the country needs to continue doing what it's doing. Let's see. Oh, they're still considering it. They've turned the decision over to the judge over in the
what's that? The on Trump?
Yeah.
They've done what now?
They've turned their findings over to the judge.
You know, I was reading this afternoon that they say of all these cases that have been filed against Trump, this one in Georgia could be the one that actually. I mean, the rest of them are pure politics.
No,
Pure. Oh yeah. Well, let me finish,
politics.
Mark. Let me finish.
They're not.
The rest of them are more political.
They're not.
Wait, Mark. Let me finish. Then you can speak. But of all four cases, the one in Georgia, filed by Fannie. What's her name?
Fonnie.
Yes. Her last name is.
Her name is Fonnie.
What's her last name?
Fonnie Willis.
Fonnie Willis could be the one that could actually convict Trump. That's a roadmap. I mean, I've heard some commentators who are conservative commentators, by the way, who have said that case could very well be the strongest one that could get Trump. Like this one in New York, that's a joke. The one that Alvin Bragg filed. And this whole thing of January 6th, I mean, Trump is there saying, don't tear anything up. And what was the other one? What was the other one that was filed? What was the one that I missed one here? There was. No, help me out, Mark.
That's withholding the documents.
Oh yeah, the documents. That's going to be a tough one to convict him on that.
No, it won't.
Well, because I think there's a lot of procedural things that could happen that could end up in the Supreme Court, and you know the court was appointed by Trump, so it could be, it could be a problem.
That's a whole different thing.
It's a whole different thing. It's like impeaching.
Is a whole different thing.
It's like the House is talking about impeaching
it's very
Joe
different.
Biden. You can't impeach
This is very
Joe
different.
Biden. Because, well, no, I'm saying
very
that
different.
If you look at the Supreme Court and who appointed who on the Supreme Court, if the case or procedural aspects of the case should end up in front of the Supreme Court, come on. Trump appointed the court. The court is appointed the court. It would be difficult. They could throw it out. But this one in Georgia, I'm told, I read, is a case that I'm saying Trump could lose this one. And that's the one that we're talking about.
Trump is going to lose all of them.
Do you know that, Judge?
He's going to lose.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying what
he's going to lose all of them.
Have written. I don't know that he'll lose.
I don't care about the conservative writers.
No,
I can care less about them. I look at the facts.
About what you
that's
say
all.
I
look at the facts. I don't say it just to be.
I'm trying to report
because
to you. I'm trying to report.
Have you
that this is
I'm asking you. I'm asking you a question.
Mark. This is a strong case. The one in Georgia.
They're all
Trump,
strong cases
that he interfered with the election process in Georgia, according to Georgia law, and the fact that it's got to be tried in Georgia. Trump could lose that case. He could win some of the others. some of the others have some problems. They just do. And, I'm just telling the truth, man. I'm not trying to react to it emotionally. I'm trying to
What problems
size
do
it
they
up.
have? Since you say they have problems,
Well, the one in
Delineate
Washington
the
on
problems.
January 6th, where we've been propagandized by the January 6th committee when we found out later that the cops were escorting this guy in the bullhorns
that has
around the
nothing to
building.
do with the case.
No, it had a lot.
That has
The guy
nothing
went
to
to
do with the
jail,
case.
Mark. The
That
guy
has
went
nothing
to
to do with the
prison.
case.
But the guy went to. What I'm
That has
saying,
nothing
they
to do with the
lied
facts
about
of
the
the
case.
No, they
They
didn't.
What? They
No,
let
they
the guy
didn't.
in and escorted him around. Then they wouldn't show that video in his
I ask
trial
you
because they held
to
it back,
delineate
and
the
then they put
problems
the
with
guy
the case.
in jail.
And you're talking
Okay,
about
I'm saying
some
there was a
video that
lot
you're
of
seeing.
lies around January 6th. There were
Not about
lies
the facts that are in this case.
the
Not
January
about
6th case,
the facts that are in this
but
case.
there were lies about that
where
case.
where
There
Mike
were
Pence, his
lies
own
about-
no, there were
lies
not.
about the case. That was a lie when they
What-
said
what-
that
what
the
was a
guy
lie?
in the horns was.
That has nothing to
when
do with
they
the
were
case.
escorting him.
That
into
has nothing to do
places.
with this
I
case.
know it doesn't, but they lied about that.
But it has
They
nothing to
lied
do with the
about other
case.
stuff, but the public
Charles,
knows they have lied.
Tell me about the
get
case.
that.
Don't
Look,
tell me
man,
about some guy
I'm
with
saying
horns
that
on.
they lied
Tell me about the merits of the
January 6th.
case.
They said that there were 6 police officers who died. No, they lied about
That has nothing to do with the case.
I know it doesn't, but they lied about January 6th.
That has nothing to do with the
Kamala
case.
Harris said it was
Kamala
right up there
Harris
with-
doesn't have
with,
anything to do with the
with
case.
Pearl Harbor.
I'm
and
asking
9/11.
you to
Come
speak
on, man.
to the merits
You
of the
gotta be
case.
kidding.
You
gotta be
still
kidding.
haven't.
But
You
they've been
haven't
lying about
delineated
it
one.
from the beginning. They've been lying about it. The public knows they've been lying about it. Donald Trump is on tape saying, go down there and demonstrate peacefully. He said that. I heard it with my ears. They make that up. That's going to be a matter of controversy in the trial.
No, it's not.
Oh, not
No,
to
it's
you,
not. No, it's
but
not.
to other people,
Because it's not even a
B.
No, it's not.
He said it. We heard him say it. We heard him say, "Go down
Okay.
there and demonstrate." And
You don't want to
protest
talk. You don't want to
peacefully."
discuss the
He
merits.
said
You
that.
want to discuss some video
No,
clips that
you-
you've seen. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that you want to talk
But
about.
that's what the jury is going to
No,
see.
no, they're not.
Why
No,
would
they're
you say
not.
they're not?
No, they're not.
Why wouldn't a defense attorney put that on? He's been indicted.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it a what is it like? It's a what? I mean, yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, the
surprised.
fine- no, I'm not surprised.
In fact, they say this is the strongest case that of all the cases
10 counts.
that they have.
Yeah, 10
That they
counts.
have. This
Yeah.
is the strongest case.
No, they're all
Not
they're,
that
they're,
January
they're all
6th
strong.
thing.
Oh,
No.
The January,
that's a very
the
questionable
January
case.
6th. No, it's
It's very questionable, man. There's gonna be a
questionable in
debate.
your mind.
There's good. No, there's
Questionable
gonna be
in
a
your
de-
mind.
and
There
not
is
in
no
your
debate.
mind. And okay,
There is
fine.
no debate
It's
about
questionable
facts.
in my mind.
There is no debate.
Not in
You
your
argue.
mind.
You,
I deal
they
with
have
that.
to. They have
I'm
to
fine with
argue
that,
it.
Mark.
They
I'm
have to
fine with
argue
that.
their case
I'm
and
fine with
present
that,
the
Mark.
evidence
Mark, I'm
and
fine with
present
that.
the facts.
I'm fine with that.
That's what
Not
criminal
in your mind.
cases are.
It's not in your mind. It's an open and shut case.
No.
In my mind, it is not.
There's no such
Because
thing.
Trump sat out there
there's
and
no
said,
such thing.
"Go down there and demonstrate peacefully."
Well, he brought him there.
Okay.
He brought him
Whatever.
there. He brought him
Whatever.
there.
He brought
And
him there.
not only did he bring them there, his own lawyers, which they have the documents,
Mhm.
sent a letter to Mike Pence. They are on tape.
Hey man, that's evidence.
They are on
That's
exactly.
evidence.
It's
Let it be,
facts.
man. There's evidence.
It's
And like
facts.
I said before, they will play.
But
the
you don't want to
video.
talk about that. You
Oh,
want to
no,
talk about
I'll
some
talk
guy in
about
a
that.
horn.
I'll talk about that. But I want you to talk about the fact.
I'm not going to
that
talk
there's
about.
other evidence in that case that's
No.
back and forth. They say the Georgia case is more open and shut than any of the other cases. That's the only point I'm making,
Okay.
man.
Okay.
I mean, the rest of it you can debate.
maybe
but
maybe,
yeah, the Georgia case.
maybe,
You don't believe the Georgia
maybe.
case is strong?
it's very strong.
Thank
They're
you.
all very
The
strong.
Georgia case
They're
is
all
strong.
very
That's all
strong.
I'm saying, man.
They're all
That's
very
all I'm
strong.
saying.
Because I just look at
What
the
time is
evidence.
it? What time? How we doing? Good. We got.
I
5
look at the
minutes.
evidence of
Okay,
it.
okay, man. You got it.
He
You good.
deserves
You
to
good. You
go to
good,
prison,
man. You
and
good.
I hope
You good,
that
Mark.
they-
Mark.
I
It's
hope.
over.
I hope.
We can talk.
No.
We did
come
that.
on. No.
You believe what you
I'm
believe.
gonna finish
I
my
believe what I
statement.
believe.
I hope that
Okay,
when they
finish.
convict him,
Got it.
I hope when they convict him,
Mhm.
that they take him and put him in one of those shiny new prisons, federal prisons that have been built that nobody is occupying, that we continue to pay for every year. and put him over there in solitary confinement and let him do his
Okay,
time.
man. Got it, Mark.
'Cause what he has done to
Okay,
this
Mark,
country
you
is
did it.
is
You did it,
disgusting.
man. You did it. Bam. You got it.
It's disgusting.
You got it.
Yeah.
You the man. You the
So,
man.
all right.
Yeah, well, we've had a great conversation. We've gone from, where do we start tonight? We started tonight with, you wanted to go to Hawaii first, and I wanted to go to the police superintendent. We went to both.
Just what
We went to both,
Yeah.
and we had a nice conversation. It's so good to be here every week, man,
It
to
is.
chop it up with you.
Yeah.
And love the people calling, and we had a good time here tonight, man.
Yeah.
We had a nice conversation.
I want to see what happens with the superintendent. I'm really holding out hope.
Everybody does, man. I hope that he's able to get a handle on the crime that's happening in the city, and the unfair characterization of Chicago that is developing because of crime. Chicago's a great city. It's a great city,
Yeah.
and we all love it, but we want to feel safe in it. And I think that Larry Snelling has his work cut out for him, as does, of course, Brandon Johnson, to make people in the city feel safe. Again,
And be safe.
and yeah,
uh,
but they got to feel safe too,
one of
I
the-
think, because
and one of our viewers, Patah, his name is Patah, who is very active out there, was carjacked last night. Thank God he's safe.
really? He drives Uber. I know
Yeah.
Patah.
Yeah.
He drives Uber.
Yeah, he
he
was
got
carjacked,
carjacked in Uber.
Yeah. I guess.
Man, see, that's
Yeah,
the
I
other thing
guess.
that's got to stop.
Yeah.
We got to stop it tonight.
But if there's more police driving around out there, the people who are doing those kind of things won't be so brazen to do them.
Yeah, well, that means you got to hire more
'Cause
cops.
I know when
man.
I
John Cantanzero would love to hear you
Do
say
you know
that.
if you're driving down the street just consciously and you see a police officer, you're going to even be more conscious of how you're driving, even if you're driving, right? So the presence of police are important. They're very important. So I want to see them more often than we do see them. All right. So you want
We
to?
got to go, man. We got to go. Thank you for joining us on the People Show this Monday night. We'll be back next Monday night for more stimulating conversation about your neighborhood, your city, your state, and your world.
And you got to tell us about your trip back home to St. Louis with your grandchildren.
Oh,
that you
yeah,
didn't
man.
tell us
That's what I
about.
did last weekend, man. I should have talked about it this week.
See, there you go.
Holla.
See y'all next week.